We're doing very well with negotiations. We have a lot of countries that want to make a deal. Frankly, they want to make deals more than I do.
Yeah, we've got a process in place. We're working on the big 15 economies first.
Donald Trump is clearly crashing the economy in real time, and he's driving us toward a recession.
Yeah, I think some of these early deals are going to be really important. I think the net result of all of this is going to be the trade barriers are going to come down.
Well, the president negotiating with Italy's prime minister today, taking a Truth Social also today, saying had a very productive call with the president of Mexico yesterday. Likewise, I met with the highest level Japanese trade representatives. It was a very productive meeting. Every nation, including China, wants to meet today Italy. The status of the trade negotiations with major partners, these are all trying to negotiate currently, and some are down the road a little bit more on negotiations. But as far as what has gotten across the finish line, we don't have a finished product as of yet. The Treasury Secretary is saying that'll take time. But as you heard, he wants to focus on the big 15 economies. Let's bring in our panel. Trey Gowdy, former congressman from South Carolina. Leslie Marshall, Democratic strategist. And Ben Domenech, editor-at-large for The Spectator, host of the Ben Domenech podcast on Fox News Radio. Okay, Ben, we obviously haven't seen the deal, the blueprint of what that looks like. When there is some kind of deal, whatever it looks like, it's going to set the table probably for the markets to be happy about.
Look, I think the president wants to make the most deals. He really wants to lean into this and have new negotiations with all of these different economies. And I think that's based largely on a theory that they essentially are going to have to pick between their relationship with China and their relationship with the United States. And as this has taken form over the past couple of weeks, it's been a bit chaotic, particularly, I think, for Republicans on Capitol Hill who haven't known how to respond to it necessarily on a daily basis. I think we have a clearer idea at this point about what the president's priorities are and whether he's able to land the plane on all of these different things. It's going to be a real test, not just for the American economy writ large, but particularly, I think, a test for American families, just given the goods that are going to be affected, particularly kitchen, household goods, toys, and things for child safety and the like, that are going to be dramatically affected by the fact that we are now in officially a trade war with China.
Yeah, here is the president on trying to reach a deal with China eventually.
Has he called you directly, President Xi, or reached out to try to facilitate a conversation?
Well, you'd think it was pretty obvious that he has, but we will talk about that soon. It's not that important because, honestly, we're going to have a deal. I believe we're going to have a deal with China. And if we don't, we're going to have a deal anyway because we're going to set a certain target, and that's going to be it.
Meantime, Reuters has this headline: China says it will ignore U.S. tariff numbers game. Really, the question is, how long can China put up with this? They import, Leslie, a lot into their country to survive economically. And, a trade war, who hurts more, us or them?
Well, there's a couple of things when you look at China. China has a very different population than we do and a very different kind of patriotism. And believe it or not, their people are willing to hurt more than our people are when it comes to money and when it comes to what they pay. Additionally, we actually import more from China than they do, so we're going to get hurt more because we know tariffs are taxes that are passed on to the consumer. The other thing that concerns me as an American, as a consumer, a voter, and somebody who's trying to balance my checkbook as well here in the United States, Brett, is that we had the Prime Minister of Italy here today, and even though my mother's Sicilian and I love her homeland, the Prime Minister herself said that she doesn't have the power to lock in a deal. You have 27 EU nations. She's one that is sat down, but we have some of our other allies met with, and that is China, not at the White House.
Yeah. Meantime, Trey, the Federal Reserve Chairman expressing concerns, and then the President expressing concerns about him. Take a listen.
The level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth.
We have a Federal Reserve Chairman that is playing politics. I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. If I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast.
Meantime, the Treasury Secretary reportedly urging caution. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has repeatedly cautioned White House officials that any attempt to fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell would risk destabilizing financial markets, according to two people close to the White House. Trey, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I think his term is up, and I would remind folks, Brett, remember, Republicans wanted John Koskinen out as the IRS commissioner. They wanted Rod Rosenstein out at DOJ, and Trump kept both of them. So the fact that he doesn't like Jerome Powell does not mean he won't let him finish out his term, but I would not look for him to be re-upped. And I'll throw a name at you. I mean, if Jay Clayton is going to be blocked from being the U.S. attorney in what used to be the Southern District of New York, I mean, it's not like Jerome Powell is the only guy in the country that can run the Fed. You got Kevin Morris, you got Jay Clayton, you got other people that can do it. I think he waits. He doesn't want to rattle the markets more than they've already been rattled. But I would, if I were Jerome Powell, I'm probably dusting off my resume.
Ben, you look at the Real Clear Politics average of polls, and understanding this is recent polls, but it's basically the performance, job performance overall, upside down. And this has turned in the average of polls on the economy. And you can see immigration, he still is seeing success there. Some polls have it much bigger spread on a positive side for immigration. What do you make of those numbers?
Well, I make of it that the Democrats are making a mistake by leaning so heavily into this El Salvador story and going after it to such a degree. You saw the comments from James Carville saying that this should be a top agenda item. I think that's completely backwards. The simple fact is that in 2024, in November, they were taught a lesson when it came to the border and when it came to being soft on crime that they needed to heed. The president has, given his policy, given them an opening on the economy that I think they could pursue to say that they need to prioritize the issues related to middle class and working class Americans and make the argument that they could do a better job of that than the president currently. But I think that the president needs to push back against that. I think that he needs to do so more vociferously and not just trust that people are going to be able to navigate their way through this chaos with confidence that what comes next is going to be better.
Yeah. Just now, crossing the wires, the U.S. Trade Representative announcing what they call targeted and phased action to reverse Chinese dominance of global shipbuilding, designed to restore U.S. shipbuilding, mitigating potential disruptions to global shipping and exports. Vessel owners and operators of China would be assessed port fees starting at $50 per net ton in 180 days. This is a big deal for all kinds of companies that use Chinese shipping in one way or another. So again, targeting China as it breaks at this hour.
Now this, President Trump justifying his hardline deportation crackdown as Democratic lawmakers like Senator Chris Van Hollen scrambled to El Salvador to rally behind Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the alleged MS-13 gang member who, as it's now been revealed, also faced domestic abuse allegations. Here's what the president said.
They're criminals at the highest level, murderers. Many of those people murdered more than one person, and they're on the loose. And I was elected to get rid of those criminals, to get them out of our country, or to put them away, but to get them out of our country. And I don't see how judges can take that authority away from a president.
One anonymous House Democrat is not happy with how his party is focused on fighting deportations, telling Axios that Trump is, quote, setting a trap for the Democrats, and we're falling for it like usual. And right on cue, it looks like these folks are falling for it too.
Democrats should have someone on the ground in El Salvador every day until Kilmar Abrego Garcia is sent home.
If you're not speaking up for this man, there will be no one left to speak up for you.
If they can disappear Mr. Abrego Garcia, then they can disappear you.
They can do this to Abrego. They could do this to any immigrant.
What is stopping them from deporting me into this El Salvador prison?
This is simply about letting him have his day in court.
Greg, the strategy of ready, fire, aim strikes the Democrats again on this.
Yes. How do you think Van Hollen felt sitting on the plane, heading to El Salvador as the news comes out about this Father of the Year? It's like, wait, this illegal immigrant has a history of violence, attacked his wife 1 or 2 times. Is it too late to turn around? Can we do an emergency? I have a medical emergency. He should have faked a medical emergency and landed in Miami. You know, usually constituents fall for this BS from politicians. It's rare to see a politician fall for their own BS. Don't hit your own stash. By the way, is it true Cory Booker is going?
As I understand it, that trip is still on.
My theory, it's because it's a captive audience. He's going to a prison. They can't leave when he starts yapping. After 10 minutes, they're going to be begging for the lethal injection. But the Democrats keep egging each other on to participate in actions that only damage their credibility and their careers and their future. Remember, it's the Dems who told people to take to the streets, get in their faces, bring the fight to the people, while also telling them that their enemy is a Nazi or a Hitler. Van Hollen took the bait. Now I think he's a dead fish. Who can take him seriously after this? You know, you're chasing a wife beater, you know, like it's a climax of Love Actually. This Maryland dad is yet another like daily special that they serve up to the gullible who are incapable of telling truth from fiction. This situation will stick with them. But do you ever, I mean, think about people who aren't a politician. Like, do you think anybody's going to hire a Colombian student who tore down posters of hostages? So they were fed a lot of propaganda, and they're going to pay for it. People vandalizing cars. People going to hire that guy. They're going to know his name. He was filmed. And now you got Van Hollen, who looks like a complete tool. This stuff sticks with you when you fall for this crap.
Jesse, yesterday I was like, maybe he didn't really think this through, but apparently they thought it through, and they are doubling down on it.
Well, we have a rule on primetime. We have to have some Democrats on the staff, and we have to have some feminists. Because if I just have people that just say, yes, Jesse, I'll get fired. You have to have a line that you can't cross, and I blame his staff. They have dumb staff. You have to rely on staff to tell you, turn the plane around. Oh, or this guy, maybe he's really not dad of the year. If you're street smart, remember, Greg, we were in the green room during Smollett, and we were like, I don't think so here. Yeah. He's going out for a sandwich at midnight. I don't think this is right.
That's green room smart.
This is green room smart, okay? Maybe not book smart, but I'll take green room smart. When you know a guy is arrested in a gang sweep of other MS-13 members, you know he's not just hanging with the wrong crowd on accident, because it said in the detective's report, MS-13 only hang out with other MS-13. If they hang out with someone outside MS-13, it compromises the gang. So if you're in a group of MS-13, you're in MS-13. So that's how I knew this guy was bad news. And now we're finding out he was pulled over in Tennessee a couple years ago with like 8 guys in his car. And he told the cop, oh, yeah, we're going to a job. I'm just taking him from Texas to Maryland. He's an obvious human trafficker. And he wasn't arrested then because guess what? Biden didn't do anything back then. If you are going to talk about the rule of law and due process, you have to have a victim that is pure. You can't have a Floyd. You can't have a Smollett. You can't have a Garcia. Your example of victimhood has to be a sympathetic victim, not someone who beats his wife and traffics humans and is in a bloodthirsty gang that rapes and murders people. Remember that ad in the last election? And it was Kamala Harris wants to do sex change operations on illegal aliens in prison. This ad is going to run all midterm. That the Democrats are trying to jailbreak an MS-13 wife-beating, human-smuggling gang member. And that is going to kill them this midterm.
How will Democrats respond to that, Harold?
Well, good to be with you all. Fundamentally, there's no doubt the country's with the president. And I disagree with you about George Floyd. He was killed on the side of a street by a police officer.
Yes, but not the greatest human.
Autopsy.
You'd argue that.
We're about, none of us are. Let he without sin raise their hand here at the table. I don't want to. Well, go figure.
My hand is up.
Go figure. Two, Democrats, you all are right. The message you're giving Democrats. This is going to run like the transgender ad ran. It's going to run like the ad when Kamala Harris was asked what would she do differently, was not able to answer the question. What I don't understand, and I get the issues of due process and the legal concerns my party may have, but let the court sort that out. I think trying to find your way down there, it would be much better to see senators, Democratic senators and congressmen outside of auto repair shops showing how prices are going up, outside of car dealerships showing how the price of cars are going up because of this unbelievably, I think, misguided plan the president has on tariffs. It'd be great to show them at grocery stores. Why not go to closed Social Security offices and Veterans Affairs services centers across the country and show how veterans, to your point, where veterans should be prioritized? Why not go with a group of retirees and veterans to say, look, their 401ks are shrinking because of what's happening, Mr. President. What you're doing is not working. My only advice to Democrats, I think we have to step back and realize, as I tried to share yesterday about the great Bill Russell, you enter politics to win and to be able to make a difference in people's lives. And the only way you're able to do that successfully and persistently is to win elections. And the issues we are choosing to highlight are not issues that are going to win elections. They may be issues worthy of attention. Let the courts deal with this. This is not a matter that United States senators should be traveling to El Salvador on at a time in which the country, where Americans are paying more for the things they need, are worried more about their kids' education, and concerned about their futures. This issue here does not lend itself to that.
I wanted to mention that, so Senator Van Hollen, he gets there. He doesn't get to see Garcia. He basically goes on a sightseeing expedition to El Salvador for 24 hours. But I think it might be better for him in the long run, because if the pictures were of him coddling and trying to make feel better a MS-13 gang member, alleged, whatever, proven, that might have been worse for him in the long run.
So the mother of Rachel Morin is calling out Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen for his visit to El Salvador, attempting to bring back the suspected MS-13 member.
To have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge or barely acknowledged my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, so that he can use my taxpayer money to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen.
So while the senator focuses on issues overseas, what about his own state? In 2022, Maryland had about 300,000 illegal immigrants, and that's 5% of the state's population. Maryland is just one of 6 states, as you can see, that gained unauthorized immigrants between 2019 and 2022. Those folks were there illegally. And according to the White House, these are just some of who have been arrested or convicted of crime. As you can see, it's a long list of people. Here to discuss is the mother of Rachel Morin, Patty Morin, and Tammy Nobles, the mother of Kayla Hamilton, who was killed by an illegal immigrant in Maryland in 2022. Ladies, thank you so much for joining the program this morning. We continue to pray for you and your family as y'all try to get through this difficult time. Patty, we've talked a lot over the years as we mourn the loss of your daughter. I don't think I've ever heard you go into the detail that you went into yesterday. What compelled you to do that?
Well, I didn't know all the details until the actual trial itself. And I so appreciate everyone, all law enforcement and Allison Healy for keeping those details and keeping the integrity of the case. So I appreciate it. I didn't like it at the time, but I appreciate it now. But I shared those details yesterday because I wanted people to understand and to know and to see the truth. That, yes, maybe some of these immigrants that are coming in really are seeking a better life. But there is also a majority amongst them that are criminals from other countries that have no regard for life at all. And I wanted people to understand just how brutal that they are and how they can just take a life without even giving it a second thought. And that this is a safety issue, and it is, I believe, a national security issue, having all these criminals in our country. And so that's the main reason why I shared it. It was extremely very painful. I was a mess the rest of the day after speaking.
It was a powerful moment. I think the American people needed to hear the unfiltered truth from you. Tammy, I want to go to you. Your story is very similar with the murder of your daughter, Kayla. Has the senator, leadership of the Democratic Party, anyone reached out to you as they have been covering what's going on with this other illegal MS-13 member?
No, they haven't. They never reached out to me, even when after Kayla was murdered and we found out that it was a 16-year-old known MS-13 gang member. The Democratic Party's never looked at her pictures. When I testified in Congress, they never looked at her photos or said her name, and they always say the same thing. Oh, the Republicans are using you as a political stunt, or I'm sorry for your condolences. That's all they had to offer. They did not offer any solutions on the ongoing problem.
Mm-hmm. Patty, this has become so political. We're talking about American citizens here. Why do you think the Democrats are so insistent on defending? We're not just talking about illegals. We're talking about criminal aliens in this country.
I think it comes down to money. I think that there is corruption in the highest places in our government. And I think that somehow this profits them and their party. I don't know if it's to just weaken our nation as a whole so they can push more of their agenda. But it's not even common sense. We should be protecting life. We should be protecting American citizens. That's why you're elected. That's why we pay taxes. And it's just, they are so out of touch with the American people. It boggles my mind.
Patty, before I go back over to Tammy, I'm just curious, after your press conference, you know, the whole country, at least the stations that decided to air, which was mostly Fox stations or conservative outlets, aired it in full. But I know the senator had to see it. So did he reach out after?
No. I've heard no response from any Democrats. I've received some threatening phone calls, but I've received no response from anybody. They're ignoring it. It's kind of like, you know, a little toddler. If I don't look at you, you can't see me. Or if I don't look at that, I didn't do that kind of thing. They're ignoring it.
Tammy, this may be a difficult question. How do you keep your composure when all of this is happening? It was a brutal murder of your daughter, but you seem so strong as you continue to tell her story. Where does that strength come from?
It comes from the love of my child, and to make sure that no one else will suffer the way that Kayla did. Also, you know, what she went through when, you know, she was just sleeping in her bed and he broke into her room and strangled her, and everything is caught on voicemail. And he beat her and raped her after he killed her. And this was a child. Like, this was a 16-year-old that did this horrible things, and I couldn't imagine what he would be like as an adult, you know, after what he did to Kayla.
Yeah. Tammy, I'm sure you saw Patty's testimony from the podium yesterday. What do you want to say to Patty?
Patty and I keep in touch, and I was just so happy that Patty received justice for Rachel. Patty, I am so happy that you got justice for Rachel. I saw the press conference and I saw them all out there, and it kind of brought tears to my eyes because I remember Kayla's trial, and I know it's just getting justice doesn't help. I mean, it helps, but it's a different type of thing. It's a hollow thing because our girls will never come back. Our girls are gone forever. They will never come back, ever.
Yeah.
It doesn't heal a broken heart that you two mothers have. We appreciate y'all telling the country your story, coming on Fox and Friends, and we just want you to know from the Fox and Friends family, from the Fox family at large, we won't forget their stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, more Fox and Friends coming up.
Now, we begin with new revelations surrounding the illegal immigrant deported to El Salvador. Democrats have been painting Kilmar Abrego Garcia as, quote, an innocent Maryland dad. But the Justice Department released documents yesterday, including a 2019 police report that they say confirm Garcia's MS-13 ties. And Fox News obtained written domestic violence allegations filed in court by his wife, handwritten by her in 2021. But Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen flew to El Salvador on a mission to bring Garcia back to the U.S.
The goal of my visit is to talk to people here about the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I told his wife and his family I would do everything possible to bring him home, and we're going to keep working at this until we're successful.
Rachel Morin's mother slammed the Maryland senator for the trip during emotional remarks at the White House yesterday.
Why are we not protecting our children? And to have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge or barely acknowledged my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, leaving her 5 children without a mother and now a grandbaby without a grandmother, so that he can use my taxpayer money to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen. Why does that person have more right than I do, or my daughter, or my grandchildren? I don't understand this.
Shannon, millions of Americans don't understand it either, including the Maryland senator's constituents, who many say, why aren't you representing and advocating more for the victim, the Maryland victim, rather than the Maryland person?
And there's no one who's going to be more powerful and advocate on this than the mother. And there are actually 2 mothers now of Maryland women who were raped and killed by people who were in this country illegally. Those men have been convicted. There's no question about that. So I think for some people, they hear this, okay, Abrego Garcia is separated from his wife, from his children, and people will say, well, these women are forever separated from their loved ones. He's not accused of anything. He's not been charged or convicted of any crime. But I think the juxtaposition of the advocacy by Senator Van Hollen is raising a lot of questions. And people say, including these mothers, where were you when my child was a victim of somebody here illegally? And I didn't hear from you. So why are you now spending this money and this time advocating on the other side of this issue?
And Lisa, I want to talk to you about strategy, because many question this from the obvious emotional and moral standpoint that Shannon just articulated. But there are plenty in the party, in the Democrat Party, including James Carville, who many consider the strategic leader, who have said that needs to be a, quote, top agenda, is bringing back this person rather than advocating. And as he said, I thought it was so interesting because his quote was, well, should we really fight on this turf or should we fight more on ordinary people? The argument being that this guy's an ordinary person, but to Shannon's point, the ordinary people are the Americans being destroyed by many illegal immigrants under this concept.
Well, I think that this shows us if the Democrats' distorted worldview, where somehow criminals are victims and victims are criminals. And you listen to what this mother said, you know, why does that person have more rights than I do, my daughter or my grandchildren? I don't understand this. That's a question we all asked ourselves for 4 years under the Biden administration, as they allowed millions of illegal aliens to enter into this country, terrorists, gangbangers, criminals. And you look at all of this yesterday, particularly with some of this additional information being exposed, as Senator Van Hollen goes to El Salvador to rescue an El Salvadoran from his home country, to bring him back to the United States, an illegal alien who judges believe that he was
for by taxpayer dollars.
Who judges believe that he might be an MS-13 member. The Prince George's County Police Department believed that as well. So this is the person you go to rescue? And so I just think it all. And then also the Trump administration blasted MSNBC and CNN for not covering this mother's remarks. So I don't understand their worldview where, you know, someone like Jacob Blake or this guy, that they're heroes and they don't stand up for the American citizens, particularly the ones killed at the hands of the people that they're advocating for.
Perfect segue, Lisa, because I wanted to talk to you about the media coverage. So not only taking Rachel Morin's mother's comments, but also the perseveration on this individual as being somehow the sort of lodestar of the party and of the values when it represents such a backwards look to so many Americans.
You know, I saw people saying that in the media, and then I saw James Carville saying it. This is the future of your party. This is what you want to advocate for. I want to mention a press release that came out from the White House yesterday. It's fascinating. They came up with a list of people who had been arrested by ICE, who were illegal immigrants and were charged. What were they charged of? Half of the folks that they mentioned, and I'm not doing the entire list because it's really pretty long. They were arrested for trafficking, abuse, and solicitation. Trafficking, abuse, and solicitation. These are crimes against women. Do you remember when the Democratic Party was trying to help women, was in favor of helping women overcome barriers and dangers and crime? Not anymore.
That's a great point.
Doctor, your thoughts?
I think it's purely a politicization, and I think Lisa was saying it best. I think right now the Democrat Party has gotten behind supporting people that are, for starters, here illegally. As a physician, I'm deeply disturbed by the report you showed at the beginning of potential domestic abuse that according to the Times of India and other sources, that his wife was putting in complaints to the Maryland court in 2021 of her being brutally assaulted. But you know what, Emily? Even that doesn't need to be a criteria to have someone who enters the country illegally return to their country where they came from. Why does that have to be justified? And how could this possibly be a winning issue for the Democrats when the American people agree with what I just said?
Yeah, to your point, many questioning, why does Senator Chris Van Hollen care more about Abrego Garcia than he does about Rachel Morin and his own constituents? But I think that question will be answered certainly the next time voters vote there in Maryland.
We are American citizens. Why should we allow people like this, violent criminals that have no conscience at all, to murder our mothers, our sisters, our daughters? So we have to look at it as we are American citizens. We need to protect our families, our borders, our children.
Quite the moment yesterday. The White House there, the emotional scene, the mother of Rachel Morin, Patty Morin, recounting her daughter's murder at the hands of an illegal immigrant. Also voicing her support for President Trump's deportation agenda. Jeff Gaylor is the sheriff of Harford County. That's in Maryland, where Rachel was murdered, and he's with us live from the town of Bel Air, county seat, about a mile from where Rachel's body was found. Sheriff, good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill.
Play soundbite number one, guys. Here's more from Patty Morin.
When he was sitting in the courtroom, he actually looked like he thought he was going to be set free. There was no remorse on his face at all. This person took my daughter so violently and so gruesomely and so graphically that they sealed the pictures.
Sheriff, I know you've gotten to know her very well, and you're very impressed by her. Before we get into details of what's happening in your state, what did you think of her appearance yesterday?
Oh, it's heartbreaking, and Patty does such a wonderful job for a family member who has had such a tragedy suffered at the hands of a criminal illegal alien. Is this situation, and as she said, it wasn't just a homicide; it was horrific, and she had to sit there through the court process and listen to the graphic detail of what this monster did to her daughter. It's heartbreaking, and we have another case in our county. Kayla Hamilton, her mom Tammy, was also interviewed on some of the news places this morning, who suffered the exact same tragedy that does not need to happen, because we need to get a handle on our border, and thankfully, the last election went well, and President Trump is doing just that.
Let me run through a couple of things. You've been to the border twice. You willingly work with ICE in the state of Maryland. You've got a state law there, 287G, that allows local law enforcement to cooperate with ICE.
Yeah, we have a federal partnership with ICE. It's corrections-based.
How's that going?
We're one of three shares. It's going great. The Maryland legislature tried to take it away from us this year because the far left has just lost their mind. Prime example of Senator Van Hollen going down there to try to bring a terrorist back to the United States. Our legislature tried to stop us. Thankfully, that failed. But we're continuing to cooperate with ICE and move criminal illegal aliens from our community, so we don't have more stories like Rachel or Kayla Hamilton, and more broken families like you see from Patty Morin. It just breaks your heart to see her.
Here's Mike Banks, Border Patrol Chief, who was in Texas on our program yesterday.
Under this administration, they have literally taken the handcuffs off and allowed us to enforce law instead of policies that were created to contradict the law. And so our morale has continued to rise.
All right. Month of March a year ago, 137,473 encounters at the border. This March, 7,181, a decrease of 95%. That goes to the point that you're talking about there, sir. And, you know, you're in the state with the quote-unquote Maryland man that's been in the news. What do you think of his deportation to El Salvador?
Good for my community, good for my state, good for my community, good for this country. President Trump designated MS-13. I don't think any police chief or sheriff in the country who's being honest is not going to say it's not a terrorist organization. That individual has been removed from our country, who should have been removed earlier. And we have the left. We have Senator Van Hollen, who couldn't even reach out to Patty or Tammy, Kayla's mom, at the tragic taking of the daughters' lives. But he can fly down there on taxpayer dollars to bring a terrorist home to Maryland.
Yeah,
we
just
don't
to
want
be
that.
clear
we
on
don't want
that,
him in the
like,
country.
you've looked at that case, right? You've looked at the evidence. Are you convinced, as the White House says, he's an MS-13 member?
Oh, 1,000%. Yes, indeed, 1,000%.
1,000.
You know,
No doubt.
Not only that, he's no doubt, and he's a domestic violence abuser. I mean, in our community, we would screen him working with ICE, and hopefully they would decide to take removal proceedings for just that reason. And he's been through removal proceedings before, and they asked for him to be removed, and yet he was still here. So kudos on the Trump administration for removing a criminal. Horrible on Senator Van Hollen for wanting to bring him back.
Okay, we'll see how the senator's trip goes. Jeff Gaylor, thank you, Sheriff. Northeast of Baltimore, thank you for your time.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.